know, he put a hurt on us today. I know, that's just not new material when Charlie Hurt's around. I love to say that. Oh, it's out.
You say something very similar when Charles Payne is on.
Baby. Yes, I say that we're in Payne's house. We're feeling the pain. But today, we were in your house.
Yeah, no, I'm in your house.
So how was it?
Good. It's always good. It's always a blast.
Yeah, you were up very late, as were many of us last night, watching to see. Did anything surprise you after the victories of Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump?
I was actually surprised by Hillary's margin.
Yes.
Double digits. We thought that was going to be a lot closer than it was. But I think what I'm interested in now is, obviously going forward, you have, this is the year of the disaffected voter. And Donald Trump is very much the guy that's talking to the disaffected voters better than anybody. And then Hillary Clinton is very much the sort of establishment candidate. Is she going to be able to figure out a way to incorporate some of that disaffectedness that Bernie tapped into in order to reach those voters?
You know what was interesting, speaking of the surprise? I think so far, and I think the results are still trickling in, but as of right now, he only won 2 congressional districts in California. One of them was not Berkeley, California, the most congressional district in California and probably the nation. And so, to me, what this says is even the people who are typically Bernie supporters, except for the hardcore Bernie people, but the people that he's drawn in are starting to get to the point where they're saying, all right, enough, let's go. And so I think for her, that probably bodes well. For Bernie, that should be the writing on the wall. When you're losing Berkeley, California, and you're Bernie Sanders, maybe time to realize people are getting a little fed up and a little tired.
I wonder how much of that had to do with the whole story about the AP putting out there that she had wrapped up the nomination.
Probably a lot.
I think that his supporters are furious today about that. And I think there's something about that that's so disingenuous. If they are resting their claim that she is now the party's nominee because of superdelegates that they had talked to, they have to name those superdelegates. They can't do it in secret because, she is a statist, establishment, pro-military candidate. She represents the status quo. And to a lot of people, the reason you have the rise of Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump in the same election, it's a revolt against the status quo.
Except for the fact that he is asking the people who embody the status quo, which are the superdelegates, which are the party bosses, the members of Congress. He's asking them, Bernie Sanders, the guy who's the revolution, is asking them to overturn the will of the voters, to overturn the will of the pledge delegates, to overturn the will of the democracy
movement. Not the pledge delegates, but their unbound pledge to him. I mean, what he's saying is they are not counted until they get to the convention.
I understand.
But everyone is rushing to judgment and counting them now.
No,
yes.
But listen, they're uncounted in the sense that they're uncounted, but you would be asking, listen, if I'm a congresswoman from Berkeley, California, but I think it's Barbara Lee, right? So if I'm that congresswoman and my district has now voted overwhelmingly to elect Hillary Clinton, you're now asking me to overturn the will of my own voters and support Bernie Sanders based on what?
Okay, but say he got, 45% of the vote total across the country.
Okay.
Say he won 21 states.
Right.
That means he lost 27, 28, including various territories. So if you take that percentage, then that should equal the number of superdelegates who are pledged him.
But it
doesn't.
Enough.
He's only got 10% or less of the superdelegates.
Fine, but even and I don't disagree with you, which is why the superdelegate system is.
I mean,
crazy.
that's why he's saying we have to overthrow that system. That's all he's got. So he has to work within it until he can overthrow it.
But I'll tell you what, Facebook Live is on fire right now from you guys talking about this.
Really?
I mean, there are accusations that the AP pulled votes from Bernie and that the fix is in. I mean, I'm seeing our viewers now watching us because we have only been on Facebook Live for about a week. I mean, it's moving so quickly.
And by the way, you're going to see accusations of voter fraud in California because it's only a semi-open primary on the Democratic side. It's not on the Republican side. And that means that the Democratic Party essentially gets to who votes in their election. So you have a lot of independent and young and first-time voters who are trying to vote for Bernie Sanders, and was their will thwarted by the California Democratic machine? I think that deserves a good examination.
But listen, that's such a Hail Mary. Look, let's look at New Jersey, for example, right, which is a closed primary, which is not open to independents unless they've registered. Actually, that's not true. In New Jersey, you can, if you're an undeclared voter, you can register on the day of the election, but you can't if you're a Republican. You can't switch on the day of to vote.
Exactly.
So she won overwhelmingly in New Jersey, something like 63 to 4, whatever it was some huge margin. You can't now say that somebody's somehow subverting the will of the New Jersey vote by somehow having some sort of illegal, nefarious thing going on. And the superdelegates, the members of Congress in New Jersey and the senators in New Jersey, now have to go along with exactly what their voters supported, and that's why at 8 o'clock...
She won by a much larger margin in New Jersey, but
California
has a 44% Democratic voting base.
Right.
It also has, it's a state that has been redistricted by Democrats. I mean, it's a state that is run by Democrats on every single level, and these are establishment party hacks that would sell their children's souls in order to get Hillary Clinton elected.
Let's get Charlie Hurt into the conversation because he's watching.
But I think all this is just absolutely fascinating. But another question I have about it is just from a journalistic standpoint. When you have an election coming up, the AP says, look, this was a story we had to report. It was news. We had to report it. I agree with that. But news organizations are always very careful about timing, especially when you have an election, and they don't drop a bombshell days before an election.
The day before an election, unless there's something really, really pressing that pushes them to do that. And this, I don't know why didn't it come out last week? Why did it not? It's perceptually monumental
Thursday?
to release that on Monday night, the night before California voters go to the polls. She was so desperate for a win there. She and her husband crisscrossed the state, canceled events in New Jersey to make sure they had a win. And, Sanders supporters today are going to say, how could it possibly have gone to 2% and all of these polls to a 15% victory? It's not because of a lack of trying on his part. And he had massive gatherings and assemblies and thousands of people across the state in towns and counties that presidential politicians never go to.
But here's my question about that: is that, and obviously Bernie Sanders supporters are very upset about this right now. But why didn't that motivate them to vote yesterday? Why did it? I don't know why it necessarily.
Question.
I think they gave up. I think they gave up. I think they've been beaten down by the Democratic establishment, and people are bullying them and Bernie to get out of the race and to shift their support elsewhere.
You would think that the people that would give up would be the people who don't really care.
I think it's also, too, I mean, not that there wouldn't have been people who would give up, but there's also the complicating factor of just how you would have registered as a Democrat in that state and the timing of it all. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, Bernie Sanders was trying to get people to understand what it was going to take and to slow down the process and put some more deadlines in there, but it was too late to do that.
Wait a second. So I'm somebody who supports same-day registration, voter registration. I hope Republicans would join Democrats in that because I think it actually enfranchises a lot more people. Having said all that, you're telling me that you're some Bernie Sanders diehard supporter in Berkeley, California. You've known that the California primary was going to make it or break it for your candidate for the last, 2-3 weeks, if not longer. Probably more than that, longer months. And all of a sudden, you're saying I've been disenfranchised because
absolutely, because normally you don't go this far into it. Remember when Hillary Clinton had dropped out, and most of the time you don't get to these late states. Look, Donald Trump's own daughter hadn't even registered to vote for her dad, because usually things have wrapped up before that.
But California is not like that. But New York, by the way, is the worst. I mean, New York, she wasn't allowed to register to vote because you have to declare yourself like in the fall of the year before.
And maybe some of them had never tried this process before.
But
look at all the new people who've been brought in.
I hate to say this, but if you're that passionate about your candidate, call up Bernie Sanders headquarters and say, how do I become a voter? How do I register to vote? There's no county organization.
And now you're just being commonsensical.
I know. Believe me. Oh, sorry. Instead of sitting there and sending death threats.
Yeah, but in California, you have to go to the registrar. It's a total pain in the keister. If you want to change your party affiliation, and I've done it in California. I'm an unaffiliated voter in California.
This is really interesting what's happening on the live chat. A lot of people are talking about that Facebook thing. I think people are offended by the fact, from what I'm reading, the kind of trending, you're probably seeing it too on Facebook Live, they're offended by the fact that we're having this conversation that a corporation would want to keep certain things out of its, I guess, kitty? I don't even know how you put it.
Get off Facebook. I mean, honestly, if they're offended, then they should get off Facebook and start boycotting. I wish they would.
But boycotting isn't going to tell Mark Zuckerberg to have gun advocates on the...
Sure it will.
It will? What do you think?
His bottom line gets impacted.
No, yeah, but I think you're exactly right about it, Harris, when you say that, he ought to own up to it if he's going to take this position, own up to it. And if it means that there comes a conservative Facebook or a pro-gun Facebook.
Nah, he would lose credibility fast.
HB
Yes.
says
Yeah,
Facebook
which is
does
why
not
he's
allow
concerned about it.
sportsmen's clubs to advertise with them anymore, and we do not sell guns or ammo. I mean, people feel pretty strongly about this. So you think he would damage his company by saying, yeah, it's the policy, let's move on?
The whole thing is sold on an open forum that you can be anybody that you want. And you can share any belief that you have. And if he comes out and says that he is suppressing certain views, just take it or leave it. You're going to lose your base.
It's easier to be a terrorist on Facebook than it is to be.
Correct.
Oh, goodness gracious.
gun rights
Correct.
advocate.
We're moving on.
What about all that propaganda?
Charlie Hurt, come back
It's true.
anytime.
Oh, thank you.
We loved having you,
Thank
and we'll
you.
see you tomorrow.
Thank you.